Oh, this lighting's awful. Hold on. Oh, that's not much better. Let's do this anyway. So I got a book I want to read. It's a nice looking book. It's got interesting. That doesn't look like paper, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, I got it from Target. The Robin on the Oak Throne. Apparently, it's a best-selling author, K.A. Linde. That's pretty cool. Part 1. Beltane. What's a Beltane? The Robin on Oak Throne is a tale of monsters, mystery, and romance. Ooh. However, the story includes elements that may not be suitable for all readers. Okay, bring it on. Combat, violent sex. No, just violent. Okay. Okay, so it's got all this stuff. Abuse, genocide. Okay, cool. I wasn't expecting that, but hey, it's 2025, ladies and gentlemen, right? Chapter 1. Let's see what a best-selling author from, from 2025 can deliver us today. Romping through the wet pastured lands in high heels was a crime against humanity. I can tell I'm going to like this already. Unlike the crime Kiersey? I'm horrible with names. I'm going to call her Kierce. Was about to commit, she stepped out of the squelchy green grass and onto the ancient graveled walkway with a sigh of relief. This author loves her adjectives already. New York City hadn't prepared her for acres of empty farmland on the outskirts of Paris or otherwise. She shifted her dark eyes to what lay at the end of her trek, the magnificent Versailles Gardens. The greenery was bracketed by twin towering fountains, boasting statues of the gods mounted on glided horses. Gods. A long grass promenade cut between the fountains with bonfires igniting the night and revealing the entrance that led deeper into the wooded grounds. On the top of the hill, in all its splendor, was the Palace of Versailles. Versailles. How do you say that? This is going to be really bad because I'm going to butcher all the names and all the places. It's going to be real fun. Kyrus could only imagine what it looked like at the height of King Louis's reign. Tonight, it was teeming with both humans and monsters. Oh, that's nice. They hang out together for the annual Bellantine Festival, a party to which Kyrus hadn't exactly been invited. Then why is she attending? Not that it had ever stopped her. Oh, that's why. There were always entrances and exits for clever little thieves. Oh, of course she's a thief. Is she going to steal my heart? And having multiple exits was a thieving rule, number 1. But for now, she was just a girl blending in with the crowd in a pink satin slip dress. If you're gonna blend into the crowd, why are you wearing a pink dress? Unless everybody else is wearing pink. In her dark hair piled on top of her head, and her makeup light like spring. No one paid her any mind as she snagged a glass of champagne off a human waiter's tray and navigated the grounds. So she's breaking and entering, she's stealing. Kyrus had one mission today. She is stealing. Steal a bracelet from the Queen of Nymphs. Okay. Step 1. Get an invitation into the palace. She failed that one. She had already picked her mark As she ascended the stairs, the promenade, a group of female nymphs traps. Okay. Around a bonfire, in nothing but tiny scraps of dresses like little purses at their hips, and flower crowns. They were almost all shorter than Kirce, with a kaleidoscope of hair, color, and wide, slight, unnatural eyes. A few horned male nymphs lounged on the other side of the fire, shirtless in white linen trousers. This is New York, right? They gotta be cold. Kirce bumped into a nymph with vibrant magenta hair as she passed, sloshing champagne everywhere. "Oh, pardon," Kirce said, by way of apologizing. The nymph spit rapid French that's quite clever, in Kirce's direction, and while the girl was distracted, Kirce slipped the crisp card out of her bag. She discreetly moved the invite to her purse, waving her other hand to indicate she didn't understand. The nymph laughed at her lack of comprehension. Oh no, she was actually speaking French. And returned to the festivities. A similar interaction back home could have ended in disaster, but the rest of the world hadn't suffered the way that New York had. So they're in Paris. Obviously, there's monsters speaking French. That's how you know you're in Paris. Back home, there were 4 years past the war and just coming to the other side of things. Here, when the monsters had stepped into the light, humans had made deals with them before it evolved so drastically. Tonight, phoenixes controlled the flames of the bonfires that nymphs deftly jumped over, performing their fertility rites. Okay. Mere lounged in fountains and shifters jumped in and out of their animal forms at will, over hedges and into the tree line. Humans drank champagne and mingled with vampires and werewolves. Okay. You don't want to be doing that. Laughter rang out, lips locked, revelry ensued, all excellent cover for Kirce's plan. She ditched her champagne flute on a table. Thankfully it had helped with her thieving rules 3 and 4, distraction and sleight of hand. She palmed the... Is this a... This has to be like a... This can't be the first book, right? Wait a sec. Oh well. You know, that's what you get for like plucking it off. We're on page 2. Let's keep going. She planned heavy hard stuff. King's symbol, granting access to the palace properly. Step 1 completed. Step 2, get inside the palace. Okay. So the shuffling goblin. Her breath caught sheer magnitude of the palace. It didn't matter how much he spent. Kirce turned off part of her brain, calculated the cost of everything. The answer wasn't fathomable. She wasn't here to steal just anything. From here, she needed to get into the Queen's chambers, despite modern adjustments over the 700,000 square foot palace. The rooms that current Queen resided in had been the same for hundreds of years. Wouldn't the Queen just be about with the people? Or is she just like an introvert? Thankfully, Kirce had perfect cover. Every attendee had the option of meeting with the Queen publicly. There you go. She would be in the throne room receiving guests until midnight. And honestly, good for her. Kirce would appreciate a woman who could take back what was rightfully hers. It was a process that Kirce was still working on for herself. Oh, yeah. So these woods had been home to the Dryads long ago, before humans had built on the property. The Queen was so beloved that she had other monsters rally to her side to reclaim the forest. I don't know if that's really important world-building information right now. I want to get to the... So she left New York to find answers and family creation. She didn't have time to think about Graves. He was a problem for another day. Right now, came step 3, the tricky part. Sneak into the queen's rooms. Kierce eradicated herself from the flow of people heading towards the receiving rooms. When she came upon the next enormous staircase, she waited until a pair of goblin guards were distracted by a group of werewolves to slip past. She's just like throwing all these creatures in our face, huh? Her feet were feather light as she crept along the deserted upper level, the private quarters. Her heart beat against her chest. An old familiar smile graced her features. It wasn't a natural smile, it was her wrong smile. Oh, it's her thieving smile. It sure helped that she was good at it. She wouldn't go as far as to say the best in the business, but her old mentor, Jason, I know it, Jason, had been the best in New York. Now, to get that bracelet and get out of here, you better. You only have. Oh, this is a long chapter. Now to get that bracelet and get out of here. Then she could happily return to Dublin, where Gen was safely tucked away, working on their next fruitless mission into the Irish countryside. Kierce blew out an exasperated breath as she hurried down the crisscrossed hardwood floors. The hallway was white and narrowed, with arched windows looking out across the grounds. To the left, opposite a series of closed wooden doorways, the rooms she glimpsed weren't decorated to the same picturesque standards she'd seen on the tour earlier that week. Instead, she found peeling antique wallpaper, furniture covered with white sheets, and even empty rooms with exposed wires. Now we're getting into it. There's been monsters here, right? There were in sharp contrast to the magnificent hall of mirrors, the carefully restored display of original bedrooms, and thousands of priceless works of art. It made the palace feel more real than myth, much like everything else in her life. I don't need the backstory. Following the blueprints in her mind, she turned down an empty servant hallway. Thankfully, most of the workers were busy with the rest of the party. They're all busy. Kierce backtracked a few steps, and slid behind a large floor-length curtain. She held her breath as 2 female voices approached, and then passed her, speaking in hushed French. She'd learned a few passing words before she made the trip, but they certainly weren't sufficient to follow this conversation. When the coast was clear, Kierce eased back in and out and hastened down to the rest of the hallway. Nearly to her destination, she peered around the corner and found 2 guards standing in front of the queen's chambers, same as when she'd slipped away from her group on the tour. They'd taken the queen's bedchamber off the official route now, and the palace was occupied once more. Luckily for her, she wasn't going to go in through the front door. Kierce retrieved her tools, delved into her wisp magic, and manipulated time. Wait, if you can manipulate time, this is going to be about a lot easier. An easy click of the lock later. Oh, she's just doing like unlocking magic. She released her magic, letting everything come back into focus. Why does she have to stop time to use the lock? Wait, let's. She retrieved her wisp magic, manipulated time. From one breath to the next, the world slid into slow motion. The goal. Just pick the freaking lock! Her wisp magic was something she's still getting used to, but her slow motion had always been a part of her, the little edge that she used to get herself in and out of bad situations. Okay. She needed to slow time so people don't hear the lock? It wasn't explained. It was the newer magic that he was still wrangling, like wards. Okay. She pressed her hand to the door, closed her eyes, pushed her hand. That would act as a tripwire. Anyone walk through this door, she would know to use another exit. Okay, that's smart. Praying she wouldn't need to, she hurried to the balcony window and slipped through it into the cool spring air. The party didn't wrap around to this side of the palace, so the grounds were empty of witnesses. That's helpful. Clouds hung heavy in the horizon, promising rain. She needed to be done before it reached her. Ticking time bomb, I got that. Ticking rain bomb. She judged the distance to the next balcony with unease. Before the spell that hit her true nature had been removed, revealing fey heritage, pointed ears and all, Kirce would never have attempted this, and though she had gotten over her fear of heights before, thanks to a quick shove from Jason, good old Jason, she didn't particularly want to test three-story drop. Ooh. But with her new magic came increased sensory awareness, quicker reflexes, and strength. Not that she was 100% confident on using any of these new skills, of course. But tonight, she'd have to make it work, because a human wasn't going to make this jump. Okay? Good thing she was no longer human. Okay? Kirce winced at that. She still identified as a human. She slipped off her heels, leaving them hidden on the balcony, then hiked up her skirts and scrambled onto the iron. She, yeah, she hissed as the iron touched her bare skin. It, the frick is she like a? Okay, here goes nothing, she said. With a spring, she jumped, reaching out for an enormous lantern suspended between two balconies. She caught it and swung back once, her muscles protesting the strain. Then on her forward swing, when her momentum was at the right angle, she released. She barely held back a scream as she launched, landing into a roll in the next balcony. She heard a rip from her dress. Effing great. Why are you worried about your dress? Kirce stood on shaky legs. Well, she made it. She dusted off her dress and inspected the rip. It had only made the already high slit slightly obscene. This was why she wore practical clothing. Yeah, no, that's why I don't wear dresses anymore. After a quick listen to the door, she pushed into the queen's opulent chambers. Everything was 16th century. Nothing fancy, but it didn't need to be. Kirce inspected the wards written around its edges. The magic was old. Warlock had put these wards into place a long time ago. Not that the magic's age affected Kirce's ability to bypass it. Kirce's main magic ability was absorption. Well, then why was she worried about the rain? Magic didn't affect her unless she took in way too much magic at once. Oh, she can only absorb magic, not rain, I guess. Which meant the wards weren't a problem, and she should crack a lock like this in her sleep. The safe was older than the warding, which always worked in her favor. She pressed her ear to the safe door, listening to the tumblers as she put together the code. Then she grinned devilishly as she turned the dial one last time, and the whole thing popped open. Excellent, she breathed. Inside was an assortment of sparkling jewels, all encased in lush gold and silver settings. It was a smaller collection than she'd been anticipating, probably just what the queen wore on the regular. Not the state jewels. The bracelet was after goblin made. While there were every manner of gemstone, there wasn't a single amethyst bracelet inside. F, she hissed. A goblin back in Dublin had assured her it was the Queen's vault, and that no one else they hired had been able to access it. She could steal it. He'd give her a coin to access the goblin market, a coin she desperately needed. Part of her had known that all of this trouble meant the bracelet was far more valuable than the goblin was offering in exchange, but she'd figured wiping the smug smile off his face would be worth it, except it wasn't here. Everything had gone right, and yet there was no bracelet. Where the hell could the queen be keeping it? Maybe on her? She scoured the safe one more time, testing for a false back or hidden compartments, but no amount of looking would make the bracelet appear. With another curse, she sealed up the safe and made a quick sweep of the queen's rooms, but there didn't appear to be any other safe inside the chambers. There was likely another vault deep in the heart of the palace somewhere, hiding the rest of the jewels. But that was an entirely different sort of mission, the kind Kirce would need a great deal more planning to attempt. "Aff," she repeated. That's all she can say. Oh, besides excellent, she made the return jump. She withered a cry. It split open. At least she judged the trajectory better this time and landed on her feet on the neighboring balcony. Her palm was only bleeding a little, just a little. But still, she scoured the room until she found the handkerchief in a dresser drawer and wrapped it around her hand. It was silent, save for two guards she had already accounted for. With a sigh, she pushed into slow motion and hustled back into the hallway. The guards didn't even turn in her direction as she bypassed them. As soon as she was out of sight around the corner, she dropped out of slow motion with a huff. Her thoughts were locked on the bracelet and what she was going to have to do to acquire it now. Then a vampire guard strode out of an alcove. Fangs extended. A girl in a low-cut blue dress giggled behind him, trying to pull him back into their liaisons. Okay. His nostrils flared before his eyes widened at the sight of Kirce. The cut on her hand. He barked at her in French. She said in panic. She started to backtrack, but there were guards in the other direction as well. Wait, stop, the man said, switching to English. This would have been a good time for the rest of her new wisp powers to kick back in. The powers she currently didn't have, but research said wisps were capable of. Well, she had time manipulation, not water absorption, glamours, and an affinity for finding treasure, which amounted to the near do well theft variety okay. She was still missing magical institution, pixie lightings, um, portraying, and persuasion. Ooh. Her ancestors had definitely had been using the later to lure people off their paths and manipulate them into different courses in all these old folk tales, but she had spent all spring fighting with her powers and had come to the conclusion that either she didn't access them or she didn't have them. Don't worry, it's only chapter 1. Since she was in dire straits, this vampire, and still didn't manifest, she was going to go with the latter, which meant plan B. Kirsty could either play stupid party guest or go for thieving rule number 2, run. Running usually felt like the better option, but she didn't have enough safe exits, and she probably a little hurt. As the guard approached her, she made her choice. She put her hand to her chest and released a sniffle. Thank God, I found you. Confusion flickered across his face. You're not supposed to be in here. You need to return to the party. I got turned around, she lied. I'm not even sure how I got through here, and then I fell and cut myself. I would be so grateful if you could help me. She batted her eyelashes and tried to lay it on thick. She could act so long as she didn't have to hold onto it for long. Stealth had always been her better option. Well, not if you're tripping and ripping dresses. His eyes darted down to her hand, and then he hastily retracted his fingers. After clearing his throat, he said, "This way." He grasped her arm and propelled her down the hall. "Wait, she began. Then a man rounded the corner ahead of them and said in a smooth voice, "I've been looking everywhere for you." A chill ran up her back as she promptly froze. The guard stuttered in shock at the sight of the man dressed in pitch black suit. His midnight blue hair was artfully pushed off his angular face, and his gray eyes held the power of a thunderstorm's. Cool. He was easily the most beautiful nightmare Kearse had ever seen. "Graves," she whispered. "Unhand my wife." Okay. Well, that was chapter 1. Um, I think that was pretty good. A lot of she's heavy-handed with the descriptions, but it's not bad. Um, yeah, I mean, I think this is the second book, right? I have to look it up. This has got to be like the second book because that I mean that's what I get from just getting this book from Target with my birthday money, birthday allowance. When you get older, you think that the birthday money is gonna stop coming. It never does. You know, it's kind of nice. I should end here. I'm not going to read chapter 2.